This is a video of a mid-range gaming PC, low to mid-range, around $600 if you just can think about the price of the parts. Normally these parts would be more expensive, but this is the potential you can get with a mixture of new and used parts for really good performance. So I'm going to start it up and you can see it running. Black case, red LED fans. I added the Enermax Polish Vegas fan. It's PWM controlled, but I believe I have it running at just 100% speed on a Cooler Master Hyper 212 EVO heatsink. And I have the little LED control poking out the back so I can change the settings on the LEDs. The side and rear fan and the top fan, which you can barely see, don't have any LEDs, but I'm trying to reduce cost, and Windows 7 is what's installed. I named it THOR. Anywho, now I'm going to scooch it back, scooch the camera back a little bit. And even if you got these monitors used and bought the peripherals at their cheap price, minus these G633 Artemis Spectrum headphones, you wouldn't be spending that much. I'm going to turn that one off, that's a little too bright. We're talking $800 with mid-range headset, $50 mouse, cheap keyboard, 2 monitors. If you consider about $200 for the 2 monitors, $800 for this entire gaming setup, without the cost of Windows, because I already had a copy. I'm going to log into Battlefield 4 and play that some, bring up some temperatures on this side. I have fans set quite loud because I just cannot hear them at all with these headphones on, and that's so I can manage a pretty decent overclock. So the hardware that we're using is a AMD FX-8320 CPU. I have it overclocked to 4.2 gigahertz approximately. The front side bus is bumped up to 240. So that we have a decent RAM frequency, and the RAM is Clev Fit 2x4 GB DIMMs, and they're rated for 2133 megahertz, but I don't believe this CPU is going to be that stable at that high of a memory clock. So it's set as if it was 1600 running on a 240 front side bus. And I think that gets us to 1920. Motherboard is an Asus M5A99FX Pro R2.0 990FX motherboard. The graphics card is a used EVGA GTX 770, their cheapest low-end model with the plastic blower cooler, not the NVIDIA reference. Even then, it can still overclock about plus 100 megahertz on the core and 50 megahertz on the memory. What I get is about 1200 megahertz boost clock, which puts us near GTX 770 classified level of performance, and that was a much more expensive graphics card. Samsung 850 EVO 250 GB SSD, rapid mode turned off. I don't want to use any of the RAM for rapid mode with only 8 gigs in here. If I had 16 gigs, I would definitely have rapid mode on. And what else do we have? Rosewill THOR is the case. THOR black, red LED fans. That's the way it comes, except for the Enermax fan, which I added. And the Rosewill HIVE 750S power supply, which is an 80 plus bronze, 750 watt power supply. And yeah, so let's load up a game, and we're gonna load up. Whoops, that's not what I want to do. EVGA Precision, because that's what I use to overclock the graphics card, because it is an EVGA board. And then I'm going to bring up OCCT so you can see the CPU temperatures. The graphics card gets quite hot. It's running on the original thermal compound, running around 80% fan speed, 106% power target, about 80 megahertz offset, so that's getting around 1200 on boost clock. So OCCT has us running around 37 degrees Celsius, 4214 megahertz, 241 megahertz front side bus. CPU V-core, according to the Asus BIOS, is 1.425 volts. Our Turbo V Evo, we'll look at DigiPlus power control so you can see what I have for the current settings. It's been stable for many hours of BF4 already, multiplayer. So I have CPU load line at ultra high, Northbridge load line at high, CPU current at 140, which I think is probably unnecessary, but it doesn't hurt from what I've seen. I've had issues in the past if I set my load line too high on these three settings, that Battlefield 4 in specific will have stuttering issues. I don't know why that is, but usually I've only used these final level of load line calibration to get up to the 4.85 gigahertz range on an FX-8320. On this 8320, it's probably never going to see more than like 4.4 or 4.5 because the performance boost is just negligible. At 4.2 gigahertz in Battlefield 4 Ultra settings, I'm getting above 50 frames per second, usually above 70 frames per second at 1080p, 70 field of view in Battlefield 4 multiplayer, which is the most demanding game that I have outside of maybe Crysis 2, and I don't have that much fun playing it. So, there's going to be an in-game overlay. We're going to be running a team deathmatch, because that seems to be one of the most taxing. Let's see here. I'm going to zoom in, see if I can get it. So that you can see the overlay that's going to be in the top left corner. Alright, hopefully my big old head doesn't block it. I would highly recommend these headphones if you can get them on a discount. They're quite good sound quality, even compared to my AKG 553s and Sennheiser HD280 Pros. Not quite as good for music, but for gaming, they're the best headset I've used. I would say they match the Astro A40s, at least first generation ones. And they're better for music. They seem to have a bigger boom on bass, which I like. And we're going to see... So we're at 101 FPS in the menu, 1202 boost, standard 3500 megahertz. So 95 FPS, 80 FPS. I have things set on high. Now I'm bringing on ultra. We're at 70 field of view. Still above 90 FPS, even though we're indoors. $80 FPS, 77. And although this game is 2 years old, it's still one of the most demanding multiplayer games out there. So we're above the refresh rate of this monitor at 1080p resolution, and I am dead. So compared to the previous video, I think that people were commenting on, which was an Athlon quad core, Athlon 2 quad core, 3 gigahertz or 3.6 gigahertz overclocked. This is going to give more than double the performance. I mean, it's a substantial improvement. I got this processor for about $110. This whole system cost me about $600 even to build. At regular prices, I believe it'd be more like $700, but thanks to Black Friday and stuff like that, I got a massive discount. And Battlefield 4, just as an example, amazing FPS. I mean, ultra settings, 4x anti-aliasing, 70-degree field of view, more than normal, and still with motion blur, depth of field on. I would put resolution scaling up to 150%, and we should still see good FPS, because that would be about I would say 2560 by 1080, I want to say. Actually, this is a 60 hertz server, so I'm going to take that away. Kind of a boring video, but you should be able to tell that this is a pretty darn good gaming setup. The biggest downfall of this system and these parts in particular, most notably the graphics card, is that it has a loud fan on it. If you can get any custom cooler card from the last 2 years, most likely you're going to barely hear this thing, or hear the graphics card in this system in general. This also has essentially an open side panel with mesh, so sound's just traveling straight out that to you, and that means any of the noise is just hitting you head on. So I guess I'll sign off for now, and thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments what kind of videos you want to see, what kind of builds. I might do a video on my own system, my main system, which is Core i7, R9 290, 32 gigs of RAM on a 1440p monitor, and compare that to these results and see what the difference is. Thanks.